Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review of this little guy here, the Spyderco Rubicon. So this guy is from Spyderco's Taichung factory, and it is one of Spyderco's highest of high-end sorts of products. And so it's a knife I've looked at for a while now, basically since it came out, and each time thought, maybe, should I? I don't know, I'm not so sure. And I've waffled back and forth a lot about it, so I want to really thank my buddy Peter for sending this along. When he made the offer, I was very excited to finally get a chance to handle one of these guys. And honestly, I'm really glad I did. So there you go, thanks Peter. In terms of size comparison, here's a Spyderco Delica, an Ontario Rat number 2. So we can see this is not a huge blade in terms of the knife. This is not a knife that's, out. Well, it's not that scary looking, and it's not that big, honestly. Here's your Spyderco PM2. For comparison, your Spyderco Sleesh Bowie. This is actually a really good price comparison. Both of these map for about 300 bucks. And, yeah, that should do it for size comparison. So let's just go on ahead and jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly as we cross the Rubicon. Oh yeah, I went there. Okay, so on the good side, the number one thing you notice about this knife, just putting it in your hand, is the beautiful fit and finish of the materials. So this marbled, polished, I'm sorry, this is not marbled, this is just a polished carbon fiber, is really super compelling in the hand. And because it's beautifully contoured and finished, and the polish is nice, and more importantly, and more perhaps impressively, you got this little G10 inlay here. But the thing is, if we look very closely, we can see that there are very little gap, if any, between the CF and the G10 here. This was done masterfully. And just tactilely, you don't really feel anything different until you actually hit the pivot. That's really impressive, and the overall impression it gives the knife in person is something that's really hard to show off. But it is really nice. Holding this in the hand is very different than looking at it in the catalog. You just look at it and it's like, wow, that's a thing of beauty. So I like that a lot. Another thing to notice is that there are full titanium liners here. The liners extend through the entire knife. You can see that in the disassembly video. And they're actually milled out a little bit on the inside. They drilled out holes to reduce the overall weight of the knife, even with those full liners. So you've got this beautiful carbon fiber on top of very robust and lightweight titanium, which is just nice. Another thing I love about this knife here is the clip. Now, would I want this clip on every Spyderco? No. But the thing is, this is a unique clip. As far as I know, this occurs on no knife but the Rubicon here. And so, and it fits the design very, very nicely. Every part of it works, and ergonomically speaking, it works really well too, because it fills this little part of your hand here. So I really do like this clip a lot. It's right side, tip up only carry, but that's okay, at least for me. But it's great, and it really lends this a custom feel, and I'm going to keep coming back to this. The blade itself is also just great in that you have this gorgeous swedge going on here that comes up to a nice even surface here. You have a beautiful grind. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how nice this little, it almost feels like a hollow grind. I think it is a hollow grind. Is on this blade, and again, this may be hard to capture on the camera, but it's really nicely done. It's under 3 inches, which makes it legal in a lot of places, which is nice, although depending on how they measure it, the cutting surface is under 3 inches. But anyways, you can get harassed even if it's perfectly legal. The steel is good, it's S30V, and I do like the maker's mark here. It's nice, and it's nicely done. It's engraved beautifully into this blade. So that's another wonderful, wonderful thing. It does have a custom pivot in that I've not seen this pivot on any other Spyderco knife. Maybe one of you guys can point out where I'm wrong there. But either way, it is unique, but in the middle there, that's still a Torx bit. So you can still take it apart with normal tools. So that's a beautiful thing. It has a liner lock on the inside here, although it's a titanium liner lock, which is less common. But, and it works very nicely. The lock bar tension is good. I'll talk about one issue with it a little bit later, but the lockup is secure. There's not, it's good to go. So that's nice. The ergonomics on this guy are very nice because the handle is beautifully contoured and sculpted. At least in my hand, this is a really nice knife. You can choke up on it a little bit and use this surface as a finger choil. but on this knife it's not as necessarily useful given the shape of the blade, but it's something that's out there. But the ergos are very good. This is nicely designed there. And then finally, the cherry on top of this is that the action on this guy is really great. It is a flipper that flips 100% of the time. Never had any problems deploying this. Part of that's because it's got a nice heavy blade. But it's a beautiful flipper from Spyderco. The detent is maybe a little on the softer side, but that's how Spyderco tends to run theirs anyway. But it's a completely unproblematic flipper, and then more interestingly, it is a very smooth knife, especially by Spyderco standards. Is it going to be besting your Norsemans, your Shiragorovs? No, not at all. But by Spyderco production standards, this is really smooth. And it is a mechanical joy. I'll go that far. So this has a lot of good here. The materials, the CF here is a great, big fan of that. The clip is great. The blade is just beautiful, and the grinds are spectacular. Steel's good. The pivot is nice. The liner lock works. The ergos are great, and the action on it is absolutely unassailable. So that's a lot of good. Let's jump into the bad here. So on the bad side, a few things. First off, this knife is pretty damn thick. It is thicker than your Spyderco PM2 by a pretty good selection, way thicker than your Delica, which has a fairly similar blade length. It's thicker than your Sleesh Bowie. It's honestly, it's really thick. This is a knife that is, because it's got this nice rounded carbon fiber scale to it on top of titanium, is thick. And it's also not the most lightweight knife either, as a result. You know, I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch, and this was comfortable enough to carry with one little thing that we'll get to. But, you know, looking at 4.1 ounces here, which relative to, say, your PM2, it's in about that same size class. So for the amount of blade you're getting, this is pretty big and pretty thick in the pocket. Another thing that's a little needlessly thick is the blade stock here. It has a very thick blade, and it's a little bit thick behind the edge as well, which means that this is not going to be a stellar slicer. It's got a hollow grind that only extends a good part of the way up the blade here. So in terms of functional cutting tool, this is not going to be a top end. This is going to be more along the lines, I think it's going to be a better slicer than, say, your Spyderco Techno, and it'll be better out towards the tip here. But if you're looking for a functional cutting tool, this has some limitations because of the way the blade was done. It's really ground for beauty, not for use, so something to keep in mind there. The edges are a little bit sharp, for instance, the inside of the Spidey hole, which you don't really need, and the back spine here is a little on the sharper side. I would have liked to see a bit more rounding there, but it's not so bad as I've had on some other knives. It does have a tendency towards a bit of lock stick. I used a little bit of electrician's antioxidant compound to, you know, address that issue, and so it's not bad, but it is there. And then the last bad thing is that this is $300, and that's a fair bit of money. For $300, you're very easily in the territory of my favorite Spyderco ever, which is the Spyderco Sleesh Bowie here. These are exactly the same price with MAP, maximum advertised price, minimum. So, you know, there's heavy competition here, and $300 buys you a whole lot of pocket knife elsewhere. So that is bad, but honestly, with the build quality here, with everything else, I'm not going to call that ugly. It's an expensive knife, but it's something that's done very well for the price. So there you go. The bad is that it's thick in the pocket. The blade is a bit thick, so it's not a great slicing tool. The edges of these other edges are pretty sharp. There's some lock stick, and it's $300. Let's jump into the ugly, and there are two ugly things here, unfortunately. On your ugly front, the first one is that the backspacer here is a little bit sharp, in that you can see that it's got these ridges that stick up past there. But one interesting thing to note is that there is no chamfering of these ridges at all. It is quite literally just flat and then pointy. And that means that especially if you're going on this dimension, this is a very scratchy surface. It does not feel very good. And more importantly, when this is just hanging out in your pocket, these sharp ridges, both the vertical line, the horizontal lines here and the side-to-side cuts, are really going to chew on something else in your pocket. Like if you got the side of your phone, if you're carrying this in the same pocket with your phone in a case, it's going to chew at your phone case or at your wallet. It's a knife that's going to slowly digest whatever else is in your pocket. And that's really not ideal. So I do wish that they had done this backspacer either smooth or at least done some kind of a chamfering of the edges of these guys to make them a little bit more rounded. That is a little bit on the ugly side. The other ugly thing here is that it's actually a little hard to get at the lock bar. As you can see, here we go. On your Spyderco Sleesh buoy, there is a cutout on the far scale that lets you touch the lock bar here. On your Shirogorov Neon, there is a little bit of a cutout here on the far scale that lets you get at your lock bar. On the Grimsmo Norseman here, there is again, the lock bar protrudes up a little bit, which allows you to get at it easily. But on this knife, the lock bar on the inside here and the other liner are at exactly the same height. And there's not even a little bit of a kind of divot, if you will, in this lock bar to allow you to jam your thumb in there. So really, to open this knife, what you're doing is you're pushing your thumb against it and kind of just jamming it in there and hoping that that wedges it open. It works. Can I do it? Oh yeah, any day. Is it a deal breaker? No. But a little bit of chamfering on this far scale, or even better, just a little bit of a cutout there, would have gone a long way to making this a much more easily used sort of knife. And so I'm going to go ahead and call that ugly, because that is genuinely a missed opportunity. That's an easy thing they could have done to make this knife better in a meaningful way. So that's your ugly. The sharp G10 backspacer is going to chew on anything else in your pocket. And the lock bar here is a little bit tough to get at, especially if you got thicker thumbs. So there's your ugly. Let's go into the final conclusion here. So your Rubicon, there's really no way around it. This is a gem, but it's an interesting kind of gem. This is the Spyderco PM2. This is a gem as well. This is your Spyderco Delica, also a gem. These two knives are beautiful precisely because they are functional. These are wonderful functional cutting tools, and they also happen to be nicely made. On the other side, though, the Rubicon is not your very best functional cutting tool. If you are just looking for something that will open boxes, if you're looking for the ideal pocket knife, this is not where you go for $300. There are a lot of really, really nice pocket knives at less than that are better in terms of pure functionality. But with that said, this is an incredible piece of art. And this is a testament to knife making as a thing, because it shows beautifully the kinds of wonderful designs that you can get from custom knife making. And it shows you how good production can be. This is a really impressive production piece, and it is the finest Spyderco I have ever handled. And I am saying that right now with my Sleesh buoy sitting on the table. Personally, to my style, I like the Sleesh a little more. But this is a really, frankly, it's a little bit better made, and it's more in the hand impressive. Yeah, it's got a little bit of ugly, but at the end of the day, if your collection of knives is really more a collection of art, and it's art that you happen to carry every so often and cut things, look at the Rubicon. There's a lot of good here, and if you can take the look of it, and you can take some of the other bad and the ugly, then do it. You're going to be very happy. But if you're just after a functional tool, this may not be the one for you. But at the end of the day, it's just so damn compelling that it has to be a gem. And so, with that proviso, I do recommend the Spyderco Rubicon. One thing to note is they're coming out with a Rubicon 2 coming up here soon. I believe it flattens out some of the carbon fiber, and I believe it addresses the backspacer issue. That might be interesting, and honestly, I'd like to check one of these out after seeing the first one. But that is something to keep in mind as well. But even the first generation is a pretty damn compelling knife with a great action and just a whole lot of good here. So well done, Spyderco. Well done, Peter Carey. All of you should be proud that this came out as well as it did. And Peter, thank you very much for sending this guy along. Hope this has been interesting to you, that you enjoyed crossing the Rubicon with me, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.